I don't like sending my original InDesign documents and all the native files to a printer or to an output provider. If you trust them, then there's nothing inherently wrong with sending those files, but personally, I just want more control and I want to minimize the mistakes that could occur. So I almost always send my documents to print as PDF files. Actually, to be honest, I do often send the native files separately just in case they need them in an emergency, but I make it clear that if at all possible, they should work from the PDF files. Anyway, let's look at how to export a color-managed PDF file from InDesign. I'll go to the File menu and choose Export. Then I'll name the file, make sure PDF is selected in the Format pop-up menu, and click Save. Adobe has created several presets that we can use in here, including high quality print and some other ones. I tend to shy away from high quality print or press quality. They're just kind of ambiguous and kind of half-baked, not ready for prime time. Instead, I would rather start with something like a PDF X1A or PDF X3. Let's go ahead and talk about those first. PDF X1A is an Acrobat 4 file. That means all the transparency is flattened. And also, if we look in the Output tab, we can see that this is a CMYK profile. PDF X1A only includes CMYK colors, or CMYK plus spot colors if I have any. And it's going to convert all my RGB images to CMYK when I export this file. Note that it says Convert to Destination, Preserve Numbers. So that means everything will be converted to the destination, to CMYK, but it will also preserve the numbers. I'll tell you a story about that. Back in InDesign CS days, a lot of people had problems exporting PDFs out of InDesign because colors like 100% black, just solid black text, would suddenly become 4-color black. They would get cyan, magenta, and yellow mixed in with the black, and they weren't very happy about that, understandably. Or a color like 50% cyan would suddenly get changed to something else like 45% cyan and 3% magenta, so that's not good. So Adobe added this thing in InDesign CS2, and of course it's still here in CS3, called Preserve Numbers. And Preserve Numbers means pass all the CMYK values through just as they are. So all of your CMYK swatches, they just get passed through perfectly. CMYK images, by default, will also get passed through. We've mentioned that in some of the movies earlier in this chapter. Your CMYK images will be passed through without being converted. But if you have manually applied a profile inside the color settings dialog box in InDesign, if you've manually applied a profile to a CMYK image, it will get converted. It will not just get passed through. So that's good to know about. But in most cases, Convert to Destination, Preserve Numbers is exactly what you want, and it'll force everything into that space. Now, the destination, usually we would just leave this set to Document CMYK. If you do know that it's going to a specific output device and you do have that profile, then you could go ahead and choose that here. For right now, I'm just going to leave that set to Document CMYK. Now, how about PDF X3? PDF X3 is also Acrobat 4, so all the transparency is being flattened. But look at the color conversion pop-up menu. It says no color conversion. That means RGB images will be passed through to the PDF in RGB. CMYK swatches pass through just as regular CMYK. But what is happening is that all of those profiles are being included inside the PDF. Now, the idea here is that your printer, whoever you're sending this to, should be able to do a better conversion to CMYK than you should. They should have better tools for doing that conversion, better profiles and so on. Well, that's not always the case, of course. In Europe, a lot of printers are quite familiar with color management, and they like PDF X3 because they agree they want to do that conversion into CMYK. Around North America, there are fewer printers who are comfortable with that. I don't know, maybe they don't like the responsibility of doing the conversion to CMYK, but a lot of printers in North America would prefer PDF X1A, already pre-converted to CMYK. So check with your printer and find out if they're familiar with PDF X3. If they're happy with that, go ahead and send them a PDF X3, and they will do the conversion to CMYK, and they probably will get a better result. Let me say one thing about PDF X4, on the other hand. PDF X4 is like PDF X3 in that it's not going to do a conversion. It's going to include all the data in the PDF and let the printer handle it downstream. But look at this. The compatibility is Acrobat 5. And the big difference there is transparency. So any kind of transparency in your documents will be passed through in the PDF unflattened. which is awesome because this implies that your printer will do the flattening for you. And once again, they can handle it better than you can. And I really like this. Now, PDFX4 is particularly useful in a workflow where you'll be flattening in RIP. For example, if the printer has an Adobe PDF print engine RIP, then they can actually put the PDF directly into the RIP, and the RIP will flatten it, it'll color manage it, it'll trap it, it'll do everything inside the RIP itself, and that's where you're going to get the maximum quality. That's pretty awesome. Unfortunately, there aren't many PDFX4 RIPs available right now. That'll change over time. But in the meantime, check with your printer, encourage them to look into PDFX4 and the Adobe PDF print engine, and maybe you'll be able to use that. Of course, don't forget the other panes in the Export PDF dialog box. We want to always go through and make sure that these are set up the way we want them to. Do you want marks and bleeds? If you had a bleed, you better turn it on here. We'll check all of these just to make sure they're right, and then we're ready to click Export. Okay, now that we know how to make a color-managed PDF, it's time to move on to the next chapter, where we're going to learn about some prepress issues that you really should know about.